Welcome to another episode of the Black Dog Confessional podcast. I'm here with, as usual, Chris Redbird Cardinal. How are you today, my friend?
I'm good, Steven. How are you?
I am well, and we're also joined by our friend Drew. Drew, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey guys, thanks so much for having me. So my name's Drew Breznitsky. I'm a therapist with St. John's Recovery Place. So I'm a director, program director and therapist for St. John's, which is a private treatment center. And then I also own locally my own business called Beachside Recovery, Interventions and Consulting, which is basically just kind of outreach, intervention, kind of helping guide people struggling with mental health, substance abuse, and their families kind of through the continuum of care, through the process, especially with regard to like legal situations, like legal on board and whatnot. But I mean, just kind of like how I got into all that, like kind of a little backstory.
Yeah, tell us about
let's get
Drew.
to the backstory
Sure.
because,
Sure.
you know, hold on. I mean, what is your actual title again over where you work?
So for the treatment center I work for, I'm program director and therapist.
Okay, so you're a therapist. Now,
Yep.
hold on. You got to take your hands out where your hoodie. Now, let's see the tattoos.
Oh yeah, I gotta
Let's see the throat. Let's see the
definitely
arm.
got some ink.
All right, so, well, not usually what I would
brass
see.
knuckles in the hands,
Yeah,
not normal for
okay,
a therapist.
so there's a backstory.
Sure.
Let's get to the backstory. How did you get down this path? When did your path start?
Man, so pretty young, dude. My mom was diagnosed with Hodgkin's disease when I was about 8. I was born in Pennsylvania, single, sick mom, diagnosed pretty young. And we kind of had to move to a warmer climate because if she would ever caught pneumonia or anything like that, you know, she would have died like instantly. Her lungs couldn't handle it. So we moved to California real quick. Wasn't dry enough, so we actually ended up settling in Clearwater, Florida. So I did like elementary, middle. I think I was in 3rd grade when I moved to Clearwater, and pretty much watched. She had like real bad choices and bad like man picker. So saw a lot of abuse, things like that. But for the most part, it was always kind of just me and her.
No, abuse as in physical and mental, or just one of the
Physical, emotional, mental, a lot of manipulation, things like that. So a lot of emotional manipulation, mental abuse, there was some physical abuse as well. I mean, for example, you know, I remember hitting one of her ex-boyfriends with a baseball bat when I was like 13, try and get him off her. So there was a lot of that, a lot of me kind of like defending her a lot.
Right.
And kind of earliest memories, just kind of going to Moffitt Cancer Center. Yeah. Because she just needed ongoing, continuing care. So I pretty much grew up in a hospital, so now it's like impossible I have to be dying for me to go to the hospital. But that was kind of like, I got, you know, picked on, bullied a lot, like no man in my life. So I like don't know how to change a tire or like change oil, like shit like that. But I can like do laundry and cook.
If it makes you feel any better, Steve has a father in his life and he can't do any of that crap. So
he's like, you look like you were like stoked that you weren't alone in that.
Yeah, I was like,
oh,
man,
not alone. But yeah, so I mean, just you know, a lot of bullying, a lot of mama's boy, this and that. I was a pretty sensitive kid, you know. Always listened to music. I played piano, you know, just kind of me and my mom. So, you know, just a lot of bullying. So I ended up kind of getting tired of that. My mom was always the one that would tell me like, if you come home with another black eye, I'm gonna blacken the other one type mom. So started fighting pretty young, just getting into some shit for the best way to put it. You know, right around, I started working when I was 13. So I started working at this little restaurant called Capona's Dugout right on Gulf to Bay Boulevard in Clearwater. And just a busboy, so I started making my own money. If I wanted a new surfboard or like, you know, skate, wheels, bearings, anything like that, clothes like that I wanted that weren't hand-me-downs or from like the thrift shop, I pretty much had to buy it. So I started just kind of saving money, but I'd also like help pay, you know, our mortgage and all the bills and stuff. So, but I was making good money. I was making like $150 a night as a busboy, dude. Like, yeah, so I started kind of
13.
Yeah. Because I always had to like take care of her, make sure she was taking her pills, make sure she was, you know, helping her shower, things like that. She had a little scooter thing to get around because her lung capacity, she couldn't walk long distances and whatnot. Gotcha. So it's kind of, I call it like a parentified child, right? Like I was a parent at like 8 years old. So when I started working, I started becoming a little more like, you know, I can do what I want, you know, I'm making money, like I'm paying your bills, like it's kind of just got this little like attitude, but it was more of like gaining that independence And that really kind of like culminated kind of when I left Clearwater and went to college. My mom started getting real sick in my senior year, and she always prayed that she would just see me graduate high school because no one in my family had ever graduated high school, let alone get a college degree. So graduated high school, moved to Orlando, to the east side of Orlando, and, you know, I started bartending, like downtown Orlando, first by UCF and then downtown Orlando. And I dropped out of school because I was 18 years old, like making damn near $100,000 a year. You know what I mean? Like 18-year-old male should not have that type of money, you know, like in that you know, industry. But anyway, long story, like started dating this girl. We broke up. My mom really liked her, so she like stayed friends with her. And that like really pissed me off for some reason. Like I felt like betrayed, you know. It was the first serious girlfriend I ever had, and which this later in the story, this is actually really interesting that I felt this way, and you'll kind of see why in a little bit. But yeah, I kind of just felt betrayed. So I just, you know, she wasn't. I quit school to bartend. So she wasn't really happy with that. So you know, we got in this big argument. She's like, you know, you're quitting school, this and that, like. And I was just like, you know what? I took care of you my whole life. Like, if you don't like my decisions, like, fuck off. And I was at a place called Have a Nice Day Cafe, downtown Orlando. This is about 2000. And I got a phone call from my uncle. And they were like some fraternity brothers. And got a call from my uncle. And he said, if you want to see your mom alive again, you better get to Clearwater, like, now. So one of my buddies drove me from Orlando to Clearwater, like 110 miles an hour, you know, and it's so crazy and surreal because it was like a scene from a movie. Like, literally didn't even mess with the elevator, random stairs, like walked in, she's on, you know, little lines beeping in the machine and everything. And I grab her hand and she flatlined, like right when I grabbed her hand. So that messed me up pretty good. You know what I mean? A lot of guilt, shame. I remember just leaving the hospital. I didn't go back to Clearwater for probably about 10 years. I just went back to Orlando, kept bartending, and just like, man, thinking my last words to her, you know what I mean? Like, I was just a hot mess, dude. Just started drinking super heavily, a lot of fighting. Got in a real bad fight at this place called Night Out Pub, right by UCF one time, where I like hurt the dude pretty bad, caught some charges, just because, you know, just said the wrong thing. I came out of the bathroom. He used my seat, asked him to get up. He said, fuck your mother. It was like 2 days after I buried her. So it just like set me off. Yeah, dude. So just like a lot of that, like anger, resentment toward myself, like guilt, shame, grief, that like unresolved complex grief, like bereavement, like, and I was a bartender. So
easy access to alcohol.
Right. So like trauma plus bartender equals chaos.
Yeah, that's probably not a good combo.
Yeah. So just kind of kept doing that, and just I was getting arrested, a lot of time in 33rd, Orange County Jail, and a lot of court cases. And then
probably cost you a lot of money.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I've given the state of Florida a lot of money throughout the years for sure. But I ended up like probably about a month after my mom died, I ended up meeting a local girl from Satellite Beach. All my friends over there were from Satellite. Just so happened they lived next to me in my apartment, so I just became really good friends with a lot of people from Satellite. And I was in that place, Night Out Pub, actually, and met like the first girl I ever dated who was from here. And we kind of, you know, kept doing that. We were together about 6 years, so we ended up moving back over here. I was like, well, I'm not moving back to Clearwater. Getting in trouble in Orlando, not like that's gonna stop in Brevard, especially with like Satellite Beach cops and everything. But
yeah, so I did see you were friends with Paul Sousa.
That I'm friends with. You saw it on my Facebook?
No.
I was gonna say I don't know whose Facebook you were looking at, because that dude used to like hunt me down, man. Yeah. Hey Paul, if you're listening. No, he'd actually sit across from my duplex on Grant, like on the ocean right there. With his lights in my house. Yeah. No shit, and just wait for me to go out. But yeah, so fast forward, just kind of move over here. Man, it just got worse, dude. Like, I kind of just hid in this relationship, and I was just like kind of so in love with her. It was a first serious girlfriend. Her parents are like amazing people, so they kind of like took me in, and just treated me like a son. Bailed me out of a lot of stuff and supported me through a lot of stuff, but 2006, it was like Christmas Eve or something, we ended up breaking up. So like all that unresolved, like complex bereavement and grief and everything that I kind of had that I never dealt with, I just shoved down through that relationship, just popped right back up. And I just lost my damn mind. Like between just that alone and then thinking, all right, well, we broke up and her parents treat me like a son. So like now I'm not going to have that. Now I'm back to having no one, and just felt really alone and isolated. Man, I was a regular. I lived right behind old Declan's.
Oh, yeah.
And my nights would consist of literally just walking in, playing some punk rock on the jukebox, like the angriest, fastest shit I could find, ordering a 151 and Coke on the rocks and shots of Jaeger, and just hitting the biggest dude in the bar for like no reason. Like I would walk into Declan's and people would leave, like because they knew like something was gonna happen. So I kind of just realized like later on my path that it was kind of just me, you know, picking a fight with myself, you know, because I had so much anger and resentment toward myself for kind of like the last things I said to my mom, you know. So actually, Paul arrested me a couple times during this time, and had quite a few arrests, man. And then finally, I got one that was pretty heavy. It was like my third DUI, but legally it's actually my second. But it was physically a third. On paper, it looks like my second.
You got a reckless the first time?
No, I got arrested for the second one, bonded out, got a third one like 2 days after I bonded out, leaving the Hustler, and
man, you're
fortunately
old school bringing up the Hustler.
Fortunately, that's another place, dude. Fortunately, I just had an amazing attorney who just like pled out to the second, pled out to the second first, and they can't because you can't get the third till you're convicted of the second. So he pled out to the third as the second. They couldn't come back and upgrade the second third. So it's just a
gotcha
kind of thing, technicality, yeah. Fortunate technicality. So I ended up catching a felony with that one because I hit a car. And I was out surfing one day, and I had a really good local attorney in town. I don't know if you want me to drop his name, but who got me a pretty decent deal. I think it was like 2 years house arrest and like 5 years probation or something, but concurrent. And I had a buddy at the time, a local buddy, who him and his brother were in the Marines, and they had come back from a couple of tours in Iraq and developed pretty bad PTSD and opiate use disorder. And one of them was actually this place called the Phoenix House in Ocala.
Yeah.
It's a residential treatment facility.
Yeah.
So I was like the only one out of all of our friends that he would write. And he wrote me and he's like, dude, I know, you know, you've never really kind of dealt with your mom dying. You've never really dealt with the breakup. Oh, and then I forgot to say earlier, like right after my mom died, like a week later, my grandmother died. And a week after that, my grandfather died,
Jesus.
Which was my whole family. Kind of forgot to throw that in there. But so lost my whole family in about a month. At 18, being a bartender. So, you know, my buddy had written me and he was like, you know, I know you've never dealt with that stuff. I know you want like some mental health counseling. For me, it was always more about like mental health. I was cutting real bad, dude. Like I got scars. I slit my throat one time. I wasn't suicidal. It was just self-harm. It's just where I picked. But got a couple good gashes on my arm, all up and down my arm. So a lot of self-mutilation, depression, kind of PTSD stuff, anxiety. And again, bartender. So he'd be like, dude, why don't you come to this place, Phoenix House? It's free if the Department of Corrections sends you there. They have a DOC unit. You get a year and a half of treatment. And I was out surfing one day, and I was like, man, what do I want out of life? You know? And the only thing I could really think of was to be a good father and a good husband. And I knew that there was no way in hell that I was going to be able to do that if I stay in the area bartending. I worked at Main Street, City Tropics, Coyotes on the Beach, Oasis. I bartended everywhere around here. So I knew there was like no way that was going to happen. So, you know, I ended up calling my attorney and saying, hey, can you get me this place, the Phoenix House? And he was like, you know, that's like a year and a half program, right? He's like, I got you like no jail time. Like I had to do a 30-day minimum mandatory in Brevard. But, I was like, yeah, man, I need to get away. You know, I just need to take a time out from life for a little bit. And so I ended up switching my plea and, you know, to include the Phoenix House. So I ended up going to Ocala for a while. I was there for about a year and a half. And I had this guy, my counselor, this guy named Dave Fields, who's now the program director. And part of my treatment plan was write your life story. And I was like, she gonna be fucked up. There's no way I'm writing my life story, dude.
It was like a novel at this point.
It was about 22 pages.
Yeah, I was about to say.
So he's like, yeah, you're gonna write it and you're gonna share it in group. So fuck you. Like I almost walked right out the door. And
finish that off because we're gonna go to a break real quick. But finish. Go ahead.
sure, that's it. We can pick up like I just
Okay.
basically
We'll pick
almost
it up
walked
there.
right out the
We'll
door.
come
I heard the music kick on. I never saw Jesse's fingers.
I
so.
saw it.
Yeah, he
he's
did
like,
it a couple. He did it a couple times.
Okay.
I'm like, what is he doing?
We'll be right back.
New Vinny Marino podcast. I want you to join me every other Monday as we tackle all the craziest headlines from around Florida and truly explore and uncover what's missing. Also, we will invite the exciting guests from our community who have seen it all and aren't afraid to spill the beans about it. And finally, we can't forget about Vinny's top 3 rants and raves about traffic, restaurants, and events. Join us on Facebook as we go live and bring you behind the scenes of each show and let you be a part of it. The Vinny Marino Podcast, all Space Coast, super raw and unedited, straight to your dome all the time, live from the Space Coast Podcast Studios. Listen everywhere you find podcasts.
Hey, Lightning.
What's up, sunshine?
I am so excited about our new show.
Oh, yeah? Well, what are we going to talk about? Real estate?
Of course.
How to get a mortgage?
Yep, for first-timers and experienced owners.
What about the best place to get a drink on the beach?
Lightning, come on. Who would know better than us?
All right, I dig it. Plus, I know we're going to bring in tons of great local guests, tell jokes, and talk about some of the hottest listings to hit the market.
Oh my God, I can't wait. Sunshine and Lightning over Brevard will have new shows every Sunday at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, streaming live from the beautiful Space Coast Podcast Studios.
And make sure you like our Facebook page, Sunshine and Lightning, Exit First Class Realty, and subscribe to Space Coast Podcast to make sure you don't miss out on any of our new shows.
Dig it.
All right, boom.
You're listening to Space Coast Podcast, home of the greatest podcasts on the Space Coast. If you're interested in becoming a sponsor or having your own show, email us at spacecoastpodcast@hotmail.com.
Space Coast Podcast.
Talk hard!
All right, we are back. When we left off, Drew, you were talking about you were just getting ready to head to the Phoenix house. You were at the Phoenix house.
Hey, pay attention. He had to write a book.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
He had to write a book.
Keep
It was
on
22
track.
pages long.
22 pages.
All right. I'm glad Chris is here. He just decided to stop in and say something for the first time today.
This is the quietest you've ever been. So
I'm in tune. That's how I even missed Jesse's finger, man. Like I was so in tune to the story. So you're at the Phoenix house. You wrote your 22 pages of your chaotic. At this time, how old were you?
This was 2009-ish. This was about 10 years ago.
Okay.
So about 25, 26.
So you're about 26 years old at this time, and you already have 22 pages of story.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's pick
Yeah,
it up there.
and that chaos that was going on went from pretty much 18 to 26.
Wow.
So, yeah.
So let's
Right,
pick it up
vibe.
from there.
Yeah. So he, my counselor was like, yeah, you're going to write your life story. You're going to share it in group. I was like, no, I'm not. He's like, well, you have to, because if you don't, we'll kick you out. You violate probation. You go to prison. I was like, all right, I'll fucking write it. So
You win.
That's influence right there.
So, so ended up writing it, dude. It was actually super cathartic. Like I remember exactly the whole process. Hey Kathy, I started writing it in the little library thing, typing it, and my fingers just started going, dude. And I was working on it probably 5 hours a day or something.
Wow.
Just like backing up, fixing it. Like I actually still have it to this day, and I add to it all the time. But yeah, so I went there, did my time, did my treatment, everything. There was one point where actually I didn't even complete it. I did about a year and a half program. But while I was there, if you had a high school diploma, they would allow you to go to the College of Central Florida, which is like, East Coast or BCC.
Eastern Florida or whatever.
Eastern Florida, BCC. So I wanted to pursue that. So I started going to College of Central Florida. I did I was starting my associates in psychology. And, when it came time for me to move to the next phase of working, I wanted to just do school. So I went to the program director at the time, and was like, hey man, I don't really want to work. I just want to see how the school thing pans out. So can I do school full time instead of just taking a class here and there? I still get financial aid so I could still pay subsistence and which is like rent and do the treatment and everything, like the aftercare and all that. He's like, no, you have to work. I was like, if I'm paying you to stay here, what does it matter if I work or go to school? Like, what do your parents tell you when work, school, army? One of those three choices, So he was just like, no. So I motioned to Judge Dugan. I motioned to get out early. Well, when I did that, it got granted too. But before it did, he kicked me out for like insubordination or whatever you want to call it, non-compliance, because I wanted to go to school. So that was irritating. But I ended up getting a violation then. So came home to Brevard to handle the violation, had a warrant out, was all holed up in a hotel, but I was doing good. Like I was doing really well, at the beginning of everything, of my own personal kind of story, my personal recovery. And I remember my lawyer at the time was like, just stay at the hotel. Don't let anyone know you're there until I get this handled. So, she got it handled. She got it worked out. Basically, I just told Judge Dugan, my plans, which were to move to Ocala, keep going to school, and do like some sort of outpatient program. And he was like, that's cool. Just get the fuck up out of Brevard. Don't ever come back to my courtroom. I was like, yes, sir. So went up there, doing good, going to school, doing probation. I had no car, no license. I didn't have a license for 5 years. I couldn't even get one for 5 years. So I could have gotten a hardship. I just didn't really want to deal with it. So I moved to a little shitty duplex right next to the College of Central Florida. I had a gym on the other side. I had a pretty cool house arrest officer who would let me go to the gym since it was literally right next to my house. Like if he was out doing rounds, he would, it was on my schedule to be at the gym, he would just come in the gym. So I was basically just working out. Like I couldn't surf because I couldn't get to the beach. Right. I couldn't drive to ponds and everything. So I just work out because I hated Ocala. That's how I took my stress out. Went to school, did probation. Didn't know anyone, so I'd take cabs, and classmates would take me to probation, which is super fun. Like you're sitting next to someone in class, like, hey, that was a good paper presentation. By the way, what are you doing after this? Think you run me to my community control?
They pulled my color this week.
Right,
my turn.
right, dude. So that's basically what I did, man.
Right.
I just asked people for rides. I walked sometimes if I had to, which was clearly the other side of Ocala. So I just kind of kept doing that. And I actually started working in an aftercare program. I actually was going to school to be, I minored, or no, I'm sorry. I did my AA at first in early childhood education. I worked at a aftercare program. Because at the time I had a adjudication of guilt withheld on the felony. So I was still kind of like, all right. So I worked in an aftercare program. I was coming up on like 4 years probation done. Or no, actually I was 4.5 years because it was right before I was off. Going to school full time, about to graduate with my AA. I come home to see my ex's parents because we're still really close, the same one I was talking about earlier, and see some friends from City Tropics I used to work with, like a little day trip. And I was under the impression that if you're out of the county within under 24 hours, you don't have to get a travel permit, right? Because I was on probation in Marion County. So I didn't. So I came home. My buddy's driving. He gets pulled over in Satellite for like doing a U-turn or something. They pull my ID, and the cop's like, "Aren't you on probation in Marion County?" I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "Well, you're in Brevard County." I said, "Thanks." "Yes, sir." "Yes, I am." And he's like, "Do you have permission to be here?" And I was like, I didn't think I needed a travel permit or anything. And he's like, "You don't, but you still need verbal permission from your probation officer." So I was like, "All right, well, no, I don't, So he arrested me for an on-site technical violation of probation for being out of the county without permission. Went to court, couldn't afford my old attorney at this point. So I had this, I'm not going to mention any names, but he was just not good. Told me I was going home. I had 2 weeks left of 5 years probation. I'm working at a school. I'm going to school and had everything done for my probation. I go to court, and I'm thinking of going home because the attorney's basically like, "You've done more time on the VOP than you even had of probation left. Like, he's gonna squash it." So I go to court, and the state goes, "We went 5 years prison." I was like, "What the fuck?" I look at my attorney. I go, "How is that going home? Like, 5 years? I just did 5 years house arrest." And so he's like, "You got a downward departure, ask for a downward departure, plea out to the judge." I was like, "Fuck, you're fired." You know what I mean? Like, fired him right there on the spot. And I did. I pled out to Judge Dugan, and I said, he goes, I had parents from the school I worked at there, people had written letters. And he goes, "Mr. Breznitsky, clearly you've made a lot of changes in life and you're doing well, but you still don't know how to follow directions." And I was just like, okay, so I'm like, he's going to send me up the road for 5 years. He goes, "I think 5 years is a little excessive, seeing how you've done 4.5 of probation or pretty much completed your probation. But I do feel like you kind of need a little wake-up call. So I'm going to sentence you to 1 year and a day, Florida Department of Corrections." He's like, "You'll do about, if you could keep your nose clean in there with your game time and everything, you'll do about 9.5 months. I was like, "Stay out of trouble in prison?" I mean, I'd never been there before, but I assume that was not the easiest thing to do. So, they transported me back to BCJ, and I waited on my ride and went to prison, man. Did 9.5 months. I went to the hole one time. I went to confinement one time.
Where'd you go?
Huh?
I sent you to a work camp?
I immediately went to CFRC for processing and everything, and then they sent me to Brevard County work camp, and then I busted a guy's face with a phone. So I went to, I kind of had to, but I went to back to CFRC and did 45 days in confinement, which, let me tell you, that's a place to find Jesus. 45 days in a closet. Ended up, because I had such short time left after that, which messed up my work release and everything, but they just kept me at CFRC East, and I just did the rest of my time there. But so I get out, I go right back to Ocala, finished my last class, my AA, graduated, ended up getting a little house, renting a little house right back by where I was before, same area. And there was a campus of St. Leo up there, St. Leo University. So I transferred right into St. Leo.
Real quick, did you get out? You had no paper?
No paper. No, better not give me paper after that shit.
I know, that's what I'm making sure.
I did close to 5 years probation. I completed 2 years house arrest and 1 year prison for, my felony charge was aggravated assault.
Right.
That was associated with the DUI because I backed in a parked car. And in the state of Florida, if you're drunk behind the wheel, your car becomes a weapon. And if you cause bodily injury or property damage over $2,500, you can catch an ag assault charge, and I caused property damage over $2,500. So that's the only felony I've ever had associated with the DUI. So, and when I went to prison, the adjudication of guilt that was withheld or overturned, and I was an adjudicated felon. Right. So I lost my job at the daycare, obviously. Not too big on you guys just get out of prison working with kids. But just went right back in school, man. I did a bachelor's in psychology and a bachelor's in human services with St. Leo. So when I had to do, for my human services degree, I had to do an internship. So I'm calling around all these places. You got to pass level 2 background screen, DCF. You got to pass this. No convicted felons. Click, 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 click. So finally, I'm like, fuck it, I'll call the Phoenix House. So I called the Phoenix House. Dave Fields, my counselor, had been promoted to program director. I didn't know that, but I said, hey, can I talk to the program director? And I ended up getting him. He remembered me. He's like, oh, you finished school, da-da-da. I was like, that's great. He remembered exactly who I was. And he's like, why don't you come up here, man, fill an application. We'll see if we can't get you pushed through the background check. Because they do a DOC background check, which isn't as stringent kind of as DCF. So he ended up bringing me on as an intern for my human services undergrad. And then I kind of transitioned 2 weeks before I graduated. I brought my family down. I started dating a woman up there, had 2 kids that I absolutely love like my own. And we were down at Sebastian Inlet doing a little camp surf trip. And I got a call from him saying, hey, man, we want to offer you a full-time position after your internship. It was like 2 weeks before I even graduated my bachelor's. So my old counselor became my boss, which is pretty cool. And he's a really good dude. So I worked at Phoenix House for about 2 years, and as a bachelor's level therapist in their self-pay insurance funded unit. So that's kind of.
Oh, am I getting the finger already?
All right, well, we'll pick it up, I guess, after that. We'll talk about, when we come back, I guess we'll talk about beachside recovery interventions and counseling, or consulting. Cool.
Jesse, have you ever wondered what is the best way to interview applicants for your open position so you have the best chance of hiring a keeper?
All the time.
Well, I talk to managers every day, Jesse, that use their gut instinct to make a hire. Sometimes that works out, but more times than not, it can lead to a bad hire. Replacing a poor hire can be expensive and hurt morale. One of our most popular service offerings at HR Office Savers is teaching employers how to be better interviewers. Improved interviewing techniques lead to better hiring, which leads to better employee retention, which leads to less turnover and more profit. Contact me today to find out how you can learn to be a better interviewer. I can be reached online at www.hrofficesavers.com or by phone 928-308-4506. Again, that's 928-308-4506. 928-308-4506.
Are you ready to explore the world? Travel to exotic locations and live your best life with Anytime Travel Solutions. Anytime Travel Solutions are your worldwide, unbiased concierge with access to real inventory of hotels, cruises, railroads, tours, and all of the best excursions. Anytime Travel Solutions realizes how fun it is to plan your own vacations, so we have the option to search vacations and book safely on our website, or you can visit us in our conveniently located offices in downtown Melbourne, Florida. Did you know travel is proven to benefit your health, both physically and mentally? We have 3 decades serving travelers and making dreams come true. So ask yourself, if not now, when? Call Ceci today to begin your adventure. Dial 321-779-4285 or visit anytimebookings.com. That's anytimebookings.com.
You're listening to Space Coast Podcast, home of the greatest podcasts on the Space Coast. If you're interested in becoming a sponsor or having your own show, email us at spacecoastpodcast@hotmail.com.
Space Coast Podcast.
Talk hard!
All right, we are back. We're here with Drew. Drew's been kind of filling us in on his life story. We've gotten to the point where now we've worked at the Phoenix House for 2 years. You kind of got through your whole educational aspect of it, and now you're
right. So while I was at the Phoenix House, I really didn't want to do graduate school, but then I kind of realized I fell in love with my job. And I realized that I had to do a master's if I wanted to, be a real kind of true blue counselor, right? So Webster had a campus up there, started doing that with the Ocala campus. So I did a master's in clinical mental health counseling, marriage and family therapy, got that started, and was still working at Phoenix House. And then I kind of transitioned into outpatient medication assisted treatment, which for listeners and people that don't know about the field is basically methadone clinic.
Okay.
Where I kind of specialized in opiate use disorder. I just learned a ton about medication-assisted treatment, ton about opiate use disorder.
Well, plus being in Satellite Beach in the 2007 era.
Yep, with all the Roxy's and
the Dr. Gaydon era of Indy Atlantic.
Yeah, yep. So, and I've had all of my friends. I would say 85% of my friends beachside have struggled with either opiate use disorder or alcohol, but mainly opiate use disorder. Heroin, pills, fentanyl, whatever. I've had probably, just myself, 20 people die related to either opiate overdose, suicide by opiate overdose, alcohol and putting a gun in their mouth, or whatever, drunk driving accidents. So, I really enjoyed doing that. I really enjoyed learning about that. And it opened my eyes, too, because I went from a complete abstinence-based program, which is Phoenix House, which is nothing. You don't take something to stop taking something, right? That's their philosophy. To take this to stop doing that, right? So it opened my eyes, man, because, I would see people come in for intake just shot out, dude. Homeless, halfway suicidal, dirty, probably haven't had a shower in forever. You know what I mean? Just nothing. And my heart just ached, dude. Made me very grateful for my life. But, I'd see him a month on methadone and, be smile on their face, completely different person, clean. Drew, I got a job. Stoked that they weren't prostituting. You know what I mean? So I was really able to see there's definitely a population for that. I don't push medication assisted treatment. I'm a very patient centered therapist and counselor. So I think everyone has kind of their own path, right? But there definitely is a population for methadone, bute, Vivitrol, things of that nature. And then there's the abstinence. A lot of people do need to go the abstinence path, Anyway, I kind of got off topic. So was working there for about 2 years, finished up my master's program, and got a call from a guy that I knew somewhat. I mean, I knew of him. His name's Denny Kolsch. He's a Brevard local from Cape Canaveral, lives in Satellite now. I was thinking about moving home because I was always really scared to move home.
Yeah, you put yourself back in that environment. It's
right. To this day, that 85% of my friends are still doing the same shit.
Yeah.
So
I'm the same boat. When I went into law enforcement, I was surfing all the time. So a lot of the crew that you probably know are the same ones I know.
Right.
I'm probably around the same range of people who have OD'd or committed suicide.
Sure.
Running through the same circuits. You know
right.
what I mean?
Right. Yes. Yeah. A bunch of people you surf with. Yeah, for sure. So I was just I'd been thinking about moving home, but I'm just I don't know, dude. And I remember my ex's parents that, again, I'm still real close with to this day, where I was don't move home. Don't ever move home. They were just anti-moving home. But anyway, I came down and I had interviewed for Denny at Florida Counseling Center, which is now Journey Pure, over in Melbourne. And I went back up, to Ocala, and I'm all right, that went well. So I was thinking I was getting this job, right? Well, I didn't hear from him at all. So I was whatever. So I just kept working my little methadone clinic, doing my thing, finished my master's, and got a call from him about 8 months later, going, "Hey man, I'm not with Florida Counseling Center anymore. I'm kind of doing my own thing. Starting a treatment center called Peace Club in Cocoa Beach. I want you to come down and be my program director." I was fell in tatted from head to toe. I'm a program director, like run it, design it, everything. So I came down to talk to him about it, and I was like, I just want my patients. I just want a couch, a chair, right? Freudian kind of notebook, like see my patients. That's it. He's like, dude, you're so much more than that. He's like, I don't think you even kind of realize it. And I didn't. Like, I've always struggled with like self-esteem ever since I was a kid. Like, you know, especially being tatted from head to toe, criminal record as long as I am tall. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, the stigmas that circle that.
Yeah, for sure. So, you know, he kind of convinced me that I could do it. So he actually moved me down here, me and my family, back to IHB, and started running his treatment center, man. Like, developed all the clinical, did the certifications, you know, DCF licensure, all that. There's a FAR level 4, which I'll explain that in a little bit, like accredited sober living attached to it. So like me and my kids and my fiance in there, you know, painting, you know, a lot of love went into the house. So real close kind of connection to that. So I did that for a while. And where Brick kind of came in is when I left there, mainly just, you know, how sometimes like you shouldn't work with your friends. Like, like I still work really closely with him. Denny's one of my best friends. I talk to him every day. But it just wasn't a good fit anymore. So I went and worked. I had never been exposed to the South Florida treatment community, which is, I don't know if any of you guys know anything about the South Florida treatment scene. No. A lot of patient brokering, human trafficking, just like, you know, insurance fraud, just super, super bad reputation in South Florida for treatment centers and sober livings. It's really bad. And I pride myself in my ethics and my integrity, and I've always worked with really a lot of nonprofits, you know, and just ethical facilities. I've always aligned myself with ethical and, you know, colleagues. But so I got a little taste of that. I went down there and I was like the regional manager of business development for a place in South Florida for like 3 months. So I covered Orange and, you know, Brevard, this whole kind of Volusia area across the Tampa, Ocala area. Basically trying to like sell their treatment, which was not a good fit for me. And like doing that, you know, I saw like they basically kind of wanted to use the fact that I was a therapist to help basically manipulate people, right. You know, which I wasn't okay with. So I worked for them very briefly, but I was really exposed to all the unethical things that go on. And I saw a lot of people in that short time, like kind of be mismanaged. And I'm like, all right, so where do these people fall through the cracks, dude? So I started thinking about it. And we have another buddy named Aaron Moore, who's a place called Solace Counseling in Orlando, who told me one time, he's like, man, you kind of just like have a way with people, especially like the criminal justice kind of population.
Well, you've been through it.
Right. Yeah. And tattoos and everything, you know. He's like, you'd be really good at doing interventions. And so I started researching, A, what interventionists make, B, what credentials you have to have. So I find out that I had plenty of experience in education to just call myself an interventionist, right? Like there's no governing entity like there's for doctors or mental health counselors or anything like that.
Right.
There's like one little certification you could get from the South Florida School of Addictions or something, which you pay like $10,000 or $5,000 or something, and, you know, take a 2-hour online class. They spit out a certificate. You know, and a lot of those guys have never even not in recovery or don't have a background, an education, you know, and or have never really experienced any, you know,
right.
They're just kind of, it's quick buck. So then I researched what they make, and they were charging, everyone I saw was charging like, you know, $10,000 to $20,000 for an intervention. And then they go do the intervention, you know, I come get you in treatment and I'm gone. And I just took all your money, which half of that money probably could have gone to treatment, because treatment's at least $25,000 for a private 28-day, 30-day program. So I was like, dude, there's got to be a better way. So I'm like still thinking about it. I'm like, where else do people fall through the cracks? Probation, right? Like offenders. I fucking hate that word almost as much as I hate the word addict. Like I like humans, you know, like I like that word because we're all flawed as humans. But I noticed a lot of people falling through the cracks there. Insurance companies, you know, parents don't know the difference, you know, how treatment centers kind of navigate the insurance world with utilization reviews, which are like, you know, keeping up like what's going on with the patient. Are we still going to continue to pay for them? They don't know the continuum of care. So like detox, residential, partial hospitalization, intensive outpatient. They don't know what that looks like. They don't know the evidence behind going through the full continuum of care as far as outcomes and, ability to meet maximum therapeutic gains. So I just kind of developed something that fills those gaps, dude, and I was marketing for the place that I worked for in South Florida. And I went into the law offices of Jeffrey Gollum because I started hitting all the attorneys, dude, because I know there's a population there. Right. And I met this guy, Chris Keisel, who you guys know.
Yeah, he was on our podcast before.
Whiskey Tango. But real good dude, man. We just, hit it off, dude. Like right off the bat. We talked. I went in there to throw him some business cards. We ended up talking for, 3 hours or something.
You say we talked. Did you actually get to talk, or did Chris?
It was mainly Chris.
I told this story before. I went to buy a shirt, and an hour later, my wife had to come over and go, "Hey, bro."
It kind of shows how our podcast rolls because Chris was obviously on the show.
Right.
That's how you reached out, and then we kind of had that conversation from there.
Yeah.
But this is why we do what we do, because we're trying to find out about other things going on.
Sure.
I didn't know who you were. You didn't know who I was. Heck, you didn't even know me and Chris were in law enforcement until a little bit ago.
Right, yeah.
Literally
5 minutes ago.
In the face went.
Foot in mouth, dude.
It's that's how this all rolls. Because, like I said, if I don't know about you, I don't know what you offer, and the concepts of interventions. And there is a gap here. There's a gap. There's a gap in basically what is it? Almost like the assisted living part after it, where people are just taken out of go leave a rehab and they're back on the street, and there's nothing.
And that's exactly
continuum's not
that's
there.
Exactly. So like BRIC is basically intervention, wraparound clinical case management, consulting and ancillary services. So, I work with a ton of places in the community. I work real closely with Eckerd Connects, with people that need family services, they have DCF cases, visitation, things like that. I work with local sober livings, the Glass House, Christie's place, the Glass House down in Melbourne Beach in Melbourne. She's amazing, FAR certified recovery residents, work real closely with her. And then a bunch of employers in the community who, will hire someone that's in recovery or, is a convicted felon. So I really, help try to point people in the right direction. When they get out of treatment and they go, okay, now what? I got no clothes, I got no car, I got no license.
And you also have self-esteem issues, things that go along with that. And part of that rebuilding process is kind of where you're looking at stepping in.
Right, exactly. So one of the things I really love that I got to do is because of Chris. We were talking and he's like, dude, there's this guy named Pastor Mark Swallow, who really used to help out in the jails and help with the indigent clients get into treatment, instead of prison or whatnot, and kind of navigate that with the courts, kind of mitigate, for people who really wanted it, really needed it, So he told me about the Justice Administrative Commission, how they kind of bring on and approve, expert witnesses and things like that. He's like, so, he told me, so I'm a private investigator and I contract through the Justice Administrative Commission to help attorneys on these cases. They pay me, the federal government's paying me to do it. He's like, you really should link up with them. So I did. I went on to the JAC and I got registered and approved as a expert witness in treatment and substance abuse and recovery. And so I kind of that's kind of what birthed BRIC, right? Because to do that, I was thinking about starting my own business, but it wasn't till about this time that I was going to start it, in 2019.
Right.
But to be able to do it with the JAC and work in the jail and everything, I had to have a business bank account. So to have a business bank account, you have to have a business. So God had a bigger kind of plan there, and I ended up starting BRIC in October. So with that component, I basically go into the jails, an attorney says, hey, I need you to help out with this case. Go into the jails, I do assessments, try to help people, motivate people, and then I basically try to find the best treatment for them. Do they have primary mental health, primary substance abuse, full-on dual diagnosis, what kind of facility they need, what's going to resonate with them. So I kind of do that. So that's kind of BRIC's just kind of all around trying to fill those gaps, man. Like when someone's on probation, I shoot an email to the probation officer and say, hey, you know, my name's so-and-so, and I'm working on this case, doing case management with this person. Let's help them succeed together. And they kind of will come through me a little bit for stuff. Kind of helps the individual not kind of feel attacked, you know, and we're kind of working as a team collaboratively to help this person succeed. So a lot of people are like, well, isn't that a little enabling? And I'm like, no, you know, I would have liked to help. You know what I mean? Like, it's rough, dude.
Well, the goal, right, is to reform and to help them recover from whatever has happened, whatever led to their arrest, so that it doesn't hold them back. So if a tool like that will help that, shouldn't that be everyone's goal? I mean, we don't want people
I would think so.
We want to knock down the recidivism.
Recidivism.
Thank you. Right.
That was a big word for Chris. I thought he was like going to Google it before we started.
I don't like to say words I can't spell,
Yeah.
and that's one of them. But if something like what you're offering helps that, I think everybody should be behind that.
Yeah.
If that's going to help knock down the.
Well, obviously, even if there's people that don't care about drug abuse, don't care about any of that stuff, but they do care about where their money's going when they pay their taxes.
Right.
And if the people that get help and get back into the business world, have jobs, do that, and all start contributing to the community, but aren't going back to jail, that's also saving them money for not having to pay for food for people who are in the jail. I mean,
sure.
Overall,
the cost of incarceration is ridiculous.
Yeah. So I mean, overall, the goal should be to heal mentally, physically, get them off whatever their the addiction is or whatever you want to call it, to get them the help they need.
Yep.
You know, because I think in this community, and you know, we'll touch on it here for a second, is we during the 05 to 07 era, we saw the prescription pills blow up.
Yep.
Then Pam Bondi pushed in the PDMP, which then allowed us to stop the doctor shopping. Once the doctor shopping slowed down, the supply and demand kind of changed. So where an Oxy 80 was selling for $20 is now selling for $1 a milligram.
Yeah.
So now that it's $80 a pill, you can't afford that unless you're going to go steal. And if you go steal or you steal credit cards, you use credit cards, those are all things that create more victims. Yep. But then people figured out about this little thing called heroin, and you know, it started being shipped down from Georgia, and it's a lot cheaper, and you can drag it out, and if you cut it, you can get this, and all the other things that go along with that. But then now we see OD. We see fentanyl. We see carfentanil. We see all these things that are circling through. But that's also, I mean, it's costing money. I mean, it's costing training time. It's costing mental health recovery. It's costing all sorts of things. But it's costing the community a lot of money.
Oh yeah.
And it's causing a lot of people to be victims in multiple ways. You have the person who's the addict, who, you know, you say you don't like the word addict, but who has a substance abuse problem, and they can't afford to live that anymore, so they turn to prostitution, or they turn to stealing and dealing in stolen property and all the other stuff that
false information in a pawnbroker.
Yeah, false information, and all of a sudden that starts building up, and now you're looking at F2s and F3s, a lot of felony 1s or felony 2s and felony 3s that are going to cause long-term issues.
Yep.
So, I mean, if you can figure out a way to create a recovery rather than incarceration, that would be most beneficial for everybody.
Yeah, and that's been one huge, like I said, huge component of what I do. I mean, I get a lot of like self-pay, private funded cases, but the work I'm doing with the JAC and like Chris and a lot of the attorneys I work with the JAC has been really gratifying. You know, it's the reason that I've been able to kind of do so much is that Pastor Mark Swallow, the gentleman that Chris told me about, had passed away a couple years ago, and I got a phone call from was it Jennifer Kerwin? She's a public defender.
Yeah.
And do you know Jennifer?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So she called me up and she's like, "Hey, can you make it to the Brevard County Bar Association Judicial Review or reception?" And I was like, "Why?" You know?
Yeah.
You're like, is this a setup? I feel like this is a setup.
So she's like, "We want to give you an award," and I was like, "You got the wrong number," you know? Like, she's like, "No, I got your name from a couple people, and you know, we've kind of been looking at what you've been doing in the community and everything, and we want to give you the Pastor Mark Swallow Award." So who's that? You know, like, so she just kind of told me everything, and that, you know, Chris told me, just kind of comparing, seemed like an amazing human being, but got me up in front of literally every judge, public defender, private attorney, and state attorney in Brevard County to accept this award.
So the question is, was Judge Dugan there?
He was not, and I was really upset by it. But it was funny because I started out, I was like, dude, this is like a tough crowd, you know? So I'm standing there, and I was like, you know, I introduced myself, and I was like, some of you may have known me, you know, some of you may know me, some of you may have sent me to prison, some of you may have, you know, defended me, some of you may have represented me in the past.
It's weird. Now you're presenting yourself rather than defending yourself.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
It's not a plea time. It's actually, you know.
Yeah, it's super weird. Like, but you know, that really gave me a great platform to really describe what it is that I do. I go meet with all those guys, like Bryn Brito, Melissa Pete, bunch of the local attorneys that kind of put on, you know, events to continue to help law enforcement, the legal kind of population. And they let me go present and talk about different treatment centers, what fits for kind of what population, how things kind of work in the treatment and recovery world. I'm also head of, or Denny and I, the owner of Peace Club, we're actually kind of like co-chairs, like for the Brevard County Opiate Task Force Treatment and Recovery Subcommittee.
Oh, wow.
So, you know, we meet a couple times a month up at the courthouse to talk about different initiatives that we're kind of putting into place. We do a lot of work with Stanley Briz over at Eckerd. He's the founder of the task force. So that's all intertwined through BRIC too. I mean, I have a commitment to myself too, where for every private pay kind of client I get, I take one pro bono case. Which
that's awesome.
Is really difficult when I work for a treatment center 2 hours away.
Right.
But it's like I said, I feel like it's just the kind of right thing to do. I don't have this business to like get rich, you know, to get my kids extra Christmas presents and like go on vacations, you know, like it's not, you know, I don't think I've ever had a significant amount of money in the business bank account. Like it's basically just, you know, like I said, something extra I like to do. My kids, my daughter wants to be a criminal defense attorney, and my son's, you know, kind of interested in that area as well. So to give to them someday or something, you know, or even it's for the community, man, you know, so it's
awesome.
It's nice that I get private pay clients once in a while and I can get some compensation through the JAC, but I think it's important to kind of give back too. So that's something that I definitely do is like, try to do as much as I can as far as, you know, the guys in the jail and stuff. But like I said, I am program director for a facility 2 hours away. So I actually drive up there Tuesday mornings and I work for them to, you know, I'm there on site. I live at the facility with the patients Tuesday through Friday, separate area, obviously. But, and then I come home Friday night and I kind of spend time with my family over the weekends. And then Monday I just run my business and do all my jail visits and stuff like that. So it's definitely a lot, but it's been super gratifying, especially, you know, I grew up in Clearwater, but Brevard's my home, man. Yeah. You know, all my friends are from Brevard. Like, I've been here probably, you know, at this point, the majority of my life, you know.
Yeah, so, it's weird. We deal with, I remember when I first started in law enforcement and back in early 2000s, you know, we didn't see needles like we see needles today. And the other day I walked by a big Sharps bucket, you know, and it was good size. You know, I looked in there and the whole thing was filled. And I mean, that was just within, you know, a week between pickups, you know, and I'm like, gosh, that is just nuts. I mean, you know, you see 2 or 3 in a car, but then you go and you actually look at like a couple of weeks worth of work and you're like, wow, that is just a lot of needles. Yeah. Because the heroin issue is so huge, you know. I mean, I would say that right now it's probably the most predominant drug that we see. I mean, and the effect on it is insane. I mean, I remember working general crimes investigations, which were all felony crimes, and it, you know, I remember it had to be in the 90 percentile of cases that were directly related to drug abuse. You know, people. During the pill epidemic, I mean, I think we saw more soccer moms that had gotten hooked on pills, that were stealing credit cards, that, you know, were then using the credit cards, and we're getting credit card frauds all the time. You were doing the same time as I was. How many cases we had that were dealing in stolen property because people were feeding the habit, you know. And like I said, there's multiple victims in those situations. You know, there's the story of the kid who, like your story, that led to something, led to trying to compensate or to gain that self-esteem or to whatever you got to do to help build yourself up, at least to take that pain away or whatever you're going to do. But doing that self-medication isn't what's beneficial.
Yep.
You know, there's other things. There's a way to develop the mind and to develop self-esteem. I mean, you're still humble, but you're doing a lot of good things, you know. I saw Jesse give me the hand. Is that the wrap-up hand? That's the 5-minute hand. I got the 5-minute hand.
It had 5 fingers, bro.
Well,
this is 1 minute. That's 5 minutes.
Yeah, but
this is hey, it's time to go, and then the music's the Oscar wrap-up speech. This is our 11th podcast with Jesse. How have you not caught on to this, Net?
I don't know. I'm a little slow today, you know, but super stoked for you to come in. Would you do us a favor, just pitch the business, pitch what you do one more time, and so
let people know how they can get a hold of Brick,
Sure.
what all they can do, and stuff like that. So we'll turn it over to you to just plug your stuff, man.
Yeah, thanks. So it's called Beachside Recovery Interventions and Consulting. Again, I keep everything like fairly priced too. Oh, you're putting it up there. Okay. I was like, are you trying to hand it to me or what? You know, and I try to
look better than
work with everyone. One of those barriers too, like I said, is finances. So, try to keep that as, you know.
Now, I do have a question. If somebody were to call you to do like a private intervention, do you do those also?
Yeah. So that's what, you know, I kind of have multiple clientele kind of like populations. There's the JAC stuff that I do with the guys in the jail. There's, you know, just private interventions, but then there's like what I kind of call like full service, like, which is what I prefer to do because I think it's really important to have that support throughout the continuum of care. So, I mean, I'll just throw it out there. I basically charge like $1,500, dude, like from start to finish. And what I mean from start to finish, that's about, roughly about like 15 to 20 hours worth of work. So that's like intervention, assessment, wraparound clinical case management, you know, working with probation, working with, you know, helping to connect with, again, parenting classes, batter's intervention, whatever it is, like all those services, plus connecting the individual with like ancillary services, like jobs, clothes, things like that.
Because I think there's a lot of parents out there that are going through it with their child right now that aren't able to get through to them. And, you know, they're looking for that type of person to come in and do a basic intervention where you sit down and has the time and experience, I guess we could throw it out there. The street cred that goes along with all that, plus the education that goes along with that, to be able to sit down. So, I mean, if you are one of those families out there that's looking for that answer, you do have an avenue that you can travel where somebody can sit down and help you with that type of
Yeah, and I have a whole team of like peer support specialists, interventionists. I got a buddy named Doug Mondo who's awesome.
We know Doug.
Oh, you guys know Doug?
Yeah,
right on.
Doug.
Yeah, Doug's a good buddy of mine. So he's on my team when I have guys that are military experience, you know, law enforcement. Like I go call Doug, you know. I've got a girl named Ali Severino who's a friend of mine. She's on I don't know if you guys seen this Viceland show, Dope Sick Nation.
I've heard of it.
But she's the interventionist on that. Then my buddy Brian up in Titusville, who was my big brother in the Phoenix house, who's still cleaning this day.
That's awesome.
So I got my buddy Steve Ellis, who is the weekend manager at Peace Club. He does a lot of work with me. So I try to kind of match people up too. I haven't kind of grown to the point where I'm utilizing all those people all the time. But they're there, you know, and if someone's a better fit for someone, I'm going to put them on the job, you know, but so yeah, I mean, I can be reached by email, which is Drew at, I don't remember, brickthestigma.com. So it's BRICTHESTIGMA.com, Drew at brickthestigma. I can be reached by phone like 24 hours a day at 321-978-4041. Always available by that number.
You're gonna get some really inappropriate texts from Steve.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Absolutely. At like 3 a.m, so just be aware of that.
Yeah, I mean, I've driven people to treatment, detox at 2 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning. You know.
Well, yeah, because when the person goes, "Hey, I'm ready."
When they're ready, let's go. You know. So yeah, again, 321-978-4041. You can check out my website at www.brickthestigma.com, and that's BRICthestigma.com. Yeah.
No, man, we thank you for coming on, Jesse, once again. We thank you for being an awesome engineer, and
Thanks, Jesse.
Chris, thanks for wearing that shirt.
Yeah, I wore my Ron Swanson shirt today.
So there you go. So I just had to throw that at Chris.
Thanks
Okay.
for wearing whatever you. Thank you
You
for
were
not
so
wearing your
nice.
sweat shorts.
I didn't wear my sweat shorts today. All right. Well, with that, everybody, thanks for listening to podcast number 11. It'll be on YouTube later today, and we'll see you in a week or so.
Thanks for having me, guys.
It's 2 weeks. Again, it's like you don't pay attention.